This episode, the football season ended, which means that we are going to be talking about the offseason, AFC East and AFC West. We're going to go over the AFC East first. The number one team in the division, the Buffalo Bills, with an 11-6 record. They lost to KC in the divisional round 36-42 in overtime. What's missing for the Bills to take that next step? What do they need to do this offseason?
For me, I still think it's to address the running back situation. It's not the reason that they lost to Kansas City, as we were talking about a little bit before the show. However, Devin Singletary started to kick up towards the end of the season, and it actually started to feel as if they really were starting to get this run game in that right direction for this playoff push to get to the Super Bowl. Now, you get to this Chiefs game, and he was basically irrelevant for them. Josh Allen was that leading rusher that he had been for them all season. And again, it's not the reason that they lost. And the reason that they lost is the next need that they have for me, ironically, is cornerback position. Trey White going down for them was absolutely huge. They needed another corner on the outside to come defend against these primetime receivers or these weapons that Kansas City has, or a team like Kansas City will be throwing at them. They need secondary help. I wouldn't spend top dollar on a running back. We understand that that's not necessary, but there are running back options in the free agent market right now that you can get for a relatively cheap price tag. Melvin Gordon, he said that he wants to come back to Denver, but if I'm Denver, I understand I have a primetime young running back in Javonte Williams. I don't necessarily think we need to bring him back. That's a very cheap option that has shown that he still has more than enough left in the tank to be a viable option for them, both in the pass and in the run game. Leonard Fournette is another one that's very intriguing to me too. He might be a little bit more pricey given the fact that he just had a very fantastic season, especially through the air, where he was at a point leading the league in receptions for the running back position. He's going to be a little bit more expensive than Melvin Gordon will be, but in this offense, you plug in Leonard Fournette, things get very intriguing because you have Josh Allen, who's already a threat with his legs. Forget about it. We already know how great he is with his arm. He's one of the best throwing quarterbacks in the league, arguably the best throwing quarterback in the league, probably the best dual-threat quarterback in terms of running the football and throwing the football. You have Stefan Diggs, who's a primetime number one wide receiver in the NFL, top 5 wide receiver in the NFL, debatably. And you bring in now Leonard Fournette, who gives you this versatility of being a great run in between the tackles, run outside, a pass-catching back. Pair that with a Gabriel Davis, who was exciting in the playoffs. Hopefully he takes that next step going into this season. This offense can get really dynamic. Now onto the cornerback position. I don't know if it's really worth it to go after a prime-time guy. Kyle Fuller's a free agent, right? I don't know. I don't think the Broncos will bring him back either. Ironically, the 3 guys that I'm saying that they should go after. Kyle Fuller would be a cheap option, especially because their cap space is not that much. They only have 9.4. So they have to be very meticulous of where they're going to spend it. I would not be opposed of getting a old veteran that has great upside, or maybe even a Gilmore. You might have to give him a little bit more. He might be a little bit too expensive, but if this is your one hole you need to address, I would rather you go out and sign the cornerback and draft a running back, and because you're more likely to hit on a running back in these later rounds than you are of a primetime cornerback. Stefan Gilmore is towards the end of his career, who still has a little bit left in the tank. And if you're telling him that he's going to be in a position to compete for a championship, I'm sure that he'll definitely play up to par and plug in perfectly.
I'm under the assumption that the Bills would have won the Super Bowl had they gotten past the Kansas City Chiefs, without a doubt. Luck wasn't on their side. The coin toss wasn't on their side.
They did it to themselves. They did to themselves.
I don't think their need is running back. I really don't. They've taken Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. They drafted them with second-round picks. So they have allocated high-end resources in the running back position.
They just didn't pick the right guys.
They just missed, but it's also not on them only. The Bills' run blocking isn't very good. You look at their free agents, Jerry Hughes, Mario Addison, Emmanuel Sanders, Harrison Phillips, Levi Wallace, Mitch Trubisky. Out of those guys, out of those guys who I'm bringing back, Harrison Phillips, I think he's a must guy. You have to bring him back. Jerry Hughes, got to bring him back. Everybody else can go. But even then, they have minus $4.7 million in cap space. So the goal is to get over the cap so they can make signings. I wouldn't be surprised if Cole Beasley's a cap casualty. They can save $6 million if they cut him. I don't think they'll cut him though, because Brandon Beane has talked about how he wants him. He wants him in Buffalo. AJ Klein, they can save $5.2 million. Darrell Williams, they can save $6.3 million. Last year, I'm talking about the 2020 season, he was good, but in 2021, he struggled. He's not a good run blocker, and that's why the Bills don't have a good running game. And John Feliciano, they re-signed him from last season, but they can save $3.4 million if they cut him. He's also not a good run blocker. I'd cut them both. And with restructures to Stefan Diggs, Mitch Morse, Micah Hyde, and Jordan Poyer, they can create up to $46.4 million in cap space just off that alone. So am I looking at a running back in free agency? I'm not. I think you look at the guards available, Laken Tomlinson, who has proved himself in the 49ers offense. He's a great run blocker. I bring him in. Mark Glowinski from Indianapolis. Connor Williams is an upgrade, I think. Austin Corbett. And right tackle, Morgan Moses, Bobby Massey. They're both okay pass blockers. They excel in run blocking a lot. And signing a veteran corner, I think, for one, they have to bring back Levi Wallace. Levi Wallace is a must guy they have to bring back. Trey White getting healthy. I think they're missing a slot. I like Teron Johnson a lot as well, but I think they can use one more guy. Maybe you get a guy like Chris Harris who wants a championship, who goes to Buffalo for a minimum deal. Patrick Peterson's not out of the question, or a Desmond King who just played in Houston. That's not out of the question. With running back, this draft class has a lot of good running backs. Isaiah Spiller, Kenneth Walker, Breece Hall, Kyron Williams, James Cook. There's a lot of guys. Because of that, I would draft a running back instead of signing one.
I'm with you there.
And I have a potential depth chart for the Bills of Josh Allen, offensively at least. Josh Allen, Kenneth Walker, Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis, Dawson Knox, Deion Dawkins, Bates, who started at guard for them this past season, Mitch Morse, Connor Williams, and Morgan Moses. I think that's an upgraded offensive line, and with those run blockers in place, I think their running game can flourish.
That's a solid lineup. I think I look at this Bills team, and there's not many glaring holes. Like, we're going to get into some teams later that definitely have some bigger holes in them because they have the most important position secured, being quarterback. They have their number one receiver, their number one corner. They have their left tackle. So the most important positions on the team, they really have set. The one hole, if anything, that I really think they need to address is edge. You mentioned Mario Addison, Jerry Hughes, both going to be free agents this year. Addison led the team in sacks with 7, and even still, he's getting up there in age alongside Jerry Hughes.
Gregory Rousseau.
Greg Rousseau is someone who they drafted recently who could fill one of those spots. But I agree, right? I think there is some areas where they could free up cap space because, you know, there's going to be, when you go on any of these websites, Spotrac, Over the Cap, whatever it might be, it's going to say 9 million, 10 million, but there's going to be a lot of things behind the scenes when it comes to cap casualties, restructures that are going to give these teams extra funds and extra money. So it's hard to just look at it in like a one sentence view. They have 10 million in cap space because it really is more than that. But I'm surprised none of you guys said wide receiver. I think they have their number one guy, obviously, in Stefan Diggs. I know Gabe Davis had the 200-yard, 4-touchdown game against Kansas City. He was phenomenal. But his first 2 years in the league, he hasn't gone over 600 yards, right? I think he's a fine depth wide receiver. I don't look at him as being the future number 2 wide receiver of the Buffalo Bills. And when I look at all the teams, or most of the teams at least, who really went far in the playoffs, you have to have multiple explosive weapons on offense. And honestly, when we were going through all of these teams, almost all of them, I said they could use a receiver because that's just the way the game's going. So I think Cole Beasley is fine in the slot. You have Stefan Diggs. I don't know if they're going to get crazy. I don't think they're going to go out and spend big on a Mike Williams or trade for Calvin Ridley, although I wouldn't be opposed because the more weapons you give to Josh Allen, it's only going to improve his game and improve your chances to win those shootouts against the Kansas City Chiefs. A few other positions I had of need. Cornerback, you guys mentioned that as well. Trey White coming off the torn ACL. Levi Wallace, pending free agent. Teron Johnson, you said, was pretty good in the slot this past season.
No, outside corner.
Outside?
Yeah.
When I looked at PFF, I saw he played a lot in the slot this year.
Oh, okay. You're probably right.
So I don't know. The veteran route is somewhere they could go if they free up the money. I also think, where they're picking in the draft, they could potentially go corner. I've seen a few mocks having Trent McDuff from Washington, Andrew Booth from Clemson. Those are 2 guys who could come in, potentially be the cornerback 2 of the future. When I look at the defensive line, we mentioned edge, but even the interior, Ed Oliver has been really solid for them. I also think Harrison Phillips is someone they should definitely be bringing back. They don't have too much depth aside of that. Someone in the draft I saw would be Wyatt from Georgia, someone who could step in and immediately be an upgrade if they don't bring back Harrison Phillips. And the last one, not a huge need, but linebacker possibly with Matt Milano really only being the stable linebacker there.
Charmaine Edmonds.
You had a couple guys, AJ Klein, Charmaine Edmonds, not the best. You could upgrade.
He's a Pro Bowler.
He was a Pro Bowler?
Tremaine Edmonds, yeah.
So is Mac Jones.
2-time Pro Bowler.
Who was also a Pro Bowler that I said in the Discord this past...
Tremaine Edmonds is dead nice, though. I don't know why I'm disrespecting him.
He's okay. I forgot who we looked up in the Pro Bowl this past year, and
Tremaine Edmonds he is pretty solid.
I can't remember now.
And he's young.
Yeah, he's a first-round pick.
You know, they got him from the Mahomes trade.
Oh, when they traded up?
It was Deion, Dawkins, Edmonds, and Allen.
Okay, so maybe it's not a huge need.
I'm playing. From the Mahomes trade, they got Trey White, Deion, Dawkins, and I think Edmonds. It's one of those. It's two of those three combinations.
Damn, I wish I remember what player we looked at the Pro Bowl. We were talking. He's
about
not
good in coverage, but
yeah, okay, not a huge need, but somewhere I think they could upgrade because whatever. But I think the one that stood out to me was receiver that you guys didn't say. I think you go upgrade the wide receiver 2 position. Gabe Davis more of a depth guy to me.
I disagree with that, and the reason I do is because you look at the stats, 600 yards, it doesn't pop out at you, but circumstance, context comes into play.
He couldn't beat out a 34-year-old Emmanuel Sanders.
In 2020, the receiving core was Stephon Diggs, John Brown coming off an 1,000-yard season, and Cole Beasley, who also had an 1,000-yard season the previous year as well. Gabe Davis was a rookie last year. This year, Sanders was brought in to be the wide receiver number 2, and it was Diggs, Sanders, and Beasley. You talk about his age, 34, okay, I get it, but Emmanuel Sanders had just come off.
But there was plenty of games where Emmanuel missed this past year, and it's not like we saw Gabe Davis have these huge blow-up games outside of KC.
I'm just saying, when I've turned on Buffalo Bills games, Gabe Davis always makes a play.
Well, you think Auden Tate also makes plays. So I don't really trust you when it comes to receivers.
It's two different guys.
Gabe Davis
gets burned.
Gabe Davis.
He's not inactive. He's not a healthy scratch.
Gabe Davis always makes a play. And since his rookie season, whenever I looked at that guy, I was like, okay, that guy has potential to be a star.
I don't think stars.
He just had 200 yards in a playoff game.
I understand that. That's literally a third of the yards he had in the entire season this past year.
So why can't he take that momentum into next season and then blossom?
I think he could.
He has a quarterback to put him in a position to be successful.
This isn't just hype. I think he's going to have a breakout year next year.
When I look at the rest of the AFC, who they're going to compete with, okay, the Bengals have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. The Chiefs have Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. The Bills have Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis.
But there's no amazing secondary that's going to stop them regardless right now in the AFC.
Who they're going up against I don't care about because they have Josh Allen.
You say that, but
there you go. So why does it really matter?
But that receiving core, that offense led by Josh Allen was able to almost beat KC.
Almost.
Yeah, and
that offense left the field winning. That's what we should say.
Let me just ask you this question. Had they faced the Bengals, you think the Bills offense torches the Bengals defense?
I'm sure the Bills score with these.
That Bengals defense was really good.
No, they played phenomenal. I don't want to knock them, but I'm just saying the Bills, I feel like at least in my heart of hearts, they would be champions. Had they gotten past KC.
We're talking about the team that also lost.
He loves to throw away the Stafford Bowl.
And the hypotheticals also.
No, I'm just saying. I mean, come on,
you would love to throw away the Stafford Bowl.
Stafford. Who am I going? Who am I going for?
I don't know. You were going for your guy Burrow. What happened?
Hey, offensive line choked.
I would like to upgrade from Gabe Davis. He was a 5th-round pick, I want to say, not someone who was highly touted out of college.
So was Stephon Diggs.
You definitely see receivers who have those high draft capital tend to break out and have successful careers outside the guys who draft in the 5th, 6th, 7th round.
All right, real quick.
We've seen it from Gabe Davis.
We saw one game.
One game.
We saw one game.
He has flashes,
and he had moments in the playoffs last year as well.
I've seen flashes here and there. We're going to year 3 now.
I'll throw in a name just to appease you. Allen Robinson, does he intrigue you?
Yeah.
Would you give him the? Do you think he would come to Buffalo on a pay cut, relatively?
Wait, so you're telling me Allen Robinson, a guy who had 400 yards last season, he had 400?
That's what I'm asking. He's gonna have to take a pay cut. He stayed, or he was hesitant to sign the tag because he wanted to get a long-term contract. he kind of shot himself in the foot.
We talked about this last episode. He could sign a 1-year deal with. I brought up KC, but yeah, still.
Do you think that?
I would love that for them. Yeah. I think Allen Robinson's without a doubt an upgrade over Gabe Davis.
Do you think it's likely?
Probably not. I think. I don't know. It's hard to say now because if someone's going to go out and give Allen Robinson a 3-year deal with the money secured, he's probably going to take that over a 1-year prove-it deal because after the 1-year prove-it deal, I think he's going to be 29 probably, right? Yeah. Like he's around 27, 28, I want to say.
He's 28 right now.
Yeah, so, he has one more big contract left in him.
Man, this Gabe Davis slander is not sitting right with
me. It's not slander. I don't like it. It's not slander.
I don't like it at all.
I see a guy who the first 2 years he put up 600 yards. He wasn't able to beat out an aging Emmanuel Sanders. Even when Emmanuel Sanders... Good. Even when he was out, got the name Gabe still. Davis didn't. It's not like he kicked up and put up 800 yards this year. Like, he was a guy. I think if you could upgrade, because that's what this league is going to, you need multiple pass catchers. This isn't, sure, am I knocking Gabe Davis? Yes. But it's more so, if I could upgrade and get a great wide receiver too, I'm not stopping that because I'm like, well, Gabe Davis might have the breakout year now. I'm not buying it.
We saw a 200-yard game in the playoffs.
One game, we saw Mike White put up 300 yards. Like, one game doesn't do anything for me.
You're talking about, come on.
I know, but we're talking about a one-game sample size. We could go through the list of a billion players who had crazy 1 games.
I mean, he played 14 games this season, Emmanuel.
How many did he start?
Emmanuel?
Yep.
14.
What do you mean? So he missed 2 games?
3.
Okay, 3.
I feel like he was banged up with. I feel like he was banged up with injuries, though. I feel like he was in and out.
I'm telling you honestly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12,
So let's
13,
put it
14,
into context. Gabe Davis had 600 yards as a wide receiver number 4.
Joel,
I'm curious to see real quick.
If he's number 2, is he not putting up 1,000? I think Gabe Davis has that potential.
I think he does have the potential.
I don't think he's putting up 1,000 yards.
So you'd rather take the gamble on Allen Robinson, who just came off.
I'm not saying give him a huge deal, but if he wants to come on a 1-year prove it, I'm not stopping.
No, on a 1-year prove it, you're turning that down. On a 1-year prove it,
I feel personally that the Bills are fine offensively, outside of their run blockers.
Oh,
that's it.
Running back.
I feel like you can find. You don't have to sign one. They don't have to sign.
No, I agree, but you can still get one for cheap. Melvin Gordon will come cheap.
They have to upgrade the offensive line. Specifically the right side of the offensive line.
Yep.
I think John Feliciano and Darrell Williams, I just don't think they're enough. They're not good run blocking. They need to upgrade that. I think outside of that, was the Bills' high defensive ranking this past season a bit flawed? Yes. So do I add some pieces there? Absolutely. But ultimately, in terms of weapons, if you have Cole Beasley, Gabe Davis, Stefan Diggs with Dawson Knox, who had a breakout year last season, I really don't see how that's not enough.
He's going to make it worth. He's going to make it work. Don't get me wrong.
I agree with that.
But I would love to upgrade because you got Cole Beasley's agent, Emmanuel's a free agent, so you're looking at Gabe Davis, Stefan Diggs, and Dawson Knox. I understand, but he wasn't hyper targeted. Like he was just extremely efficient this past season. But he's not this guy who's going to get 10 targets a game. Most likely,
he shouldn't be.
He's extremely athletic.
10 targets a game?
I know, 10 targets is a lot. I mean, that's an extreme. He's just exaggerating his point. It's Dawson Knox.
He's not going to be a focal point of this offense.
He has the ability to be, though.
Knox?
Dawson Knox, yes.
You think he'd be like a top 5 tight end in this league?
I mean, he led the league in touchdowns this year.
So did Robert Tonyan.
For the tight end position.
So did Robert Tonyan last
But we also have to understand who his quarterback was.
I know, but
Aaron Rodgers.
Josh Allen, his touchdown percentage is going to be ridiculously high. That's going to come down next year.
I don't doubt that.
To end off this segment for the Bills offseason preview, just give me one player you want them to go after. That this is like, okay, if the Bills get one guy, that's the guy.
Stefan Gilmore.
I was also going to go corner. They might go the veteran route, but I also think going in the draft, being that late 20s range, they could get a McDuffie, who is the cornerback one on some people's boards.
Stefan Gilmore one was kind of crazy because I don't know if they have money for that, but if they do, that he used to play for them.
Contracts I'm looking at right now for Stefan Gilmore are like 2 years, 22, 23 million.
I also like George Pickens from Georgia, who might not be a first-round pick, big body, someone who dealt with injuries, but I think he's going to test well at the combine.
My guy's Laken Tomlinson. Right guard, can really solidify their running game.
Fair enough.
I hope they don't cut Mitch Morse. There's talks about that happening, that they might cut him, they might release him. We'll see what happens, but my guy's Laken Tomlinson. If they can do that, I think they'll improve their run block.
And Joel.
Run blocking.